On this episode of the Comic Book Kaiju podcast, I have the founder of Catalyst Magazine, a quarterly magazine that is designed to promote independent creators, the host of the Panels on Pages podcast, one of the best comic book podcasts around, as well as, I would say, one of the most knowledgeable comic book TikToks that you will ever find. We have Catalyst creator, indie hype man on his Balkan BS, Mr. Dalibor. How are you doing today, sir?
I am well. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
That's a great intro. That's an outstanding intro.
Thank you. I'm very glad you joined me because, like I said, your TikTok is what drew my attention first. And you just kept coming up. The algorithm just kept throwing it to me. And it was just knowledgeable response after knowledgeable response. So I said, I got to follow him. I got to get this comic book knowledge in my brain. So I have been a faithful follower on TikTok. And then that spread to the podcast and then your Catalyst magazine. So I'm very happy to have you on the show. Happy to have all of your comic book goodness on today. And actually, I wanted to start off with your comic book origin story. So I want to hear, because I always find it fascinating, how do people get into comics, whether it's the X-Men 90s animated show or a Batman movie, Michael Keaton, Christopher Reeve. So how did you get started in comics? What hooked you?
So I've been reading a form of comics since the Balkan days, since Bosnia, since I was a wee tyke, if you could imagine me being a wee tyke. I used to read what is probably best described as like more pulp style magazines. So black and white, like, sequential stuff, but it was black and white. It was all usually like, cops and robbers, mystery men kind of stuff, like nothing superpower, no superheroes, until I got to America. And then it was definitely, I can't pick which one was first. It was all around the same time, but I mean, it went from Power Rangers right away into the Spider-Man and X-Men animated series. And from there, I just absorbed everything I could. And then my first comic book, man, I'm going to mess this up because I always forget the number, but I'm pretty sure Amazing Spider-Man 418. I feel like that's right. Who knows? But it was a Ben Reilly was my Spider-Man. Ben Reilly was my first comic book Spider-Man, and they hadn't gotten to that story in the show yet, so I didn't know anything about Ben Reilly. And what really just captured me in that issue was I think the introduction of I believe her name was, I want to say it was Belladonna. She was like an assassin, but you could hear her words because of the lettering that was used for her. She had emphasis on certain words, so they use different colors for certain words and different styles of fonts. So the way she talked to people was very visual, so I could hear. So every time I even think about her, I see those letters to this day. And I've only really read that issue maybe 4 times ever. So but I know it's I have it in my special collection of very few singles that I have because it was the way I walked into it. And then from there I was on a road trip with my uncle and we stopped at a gas station. This was back when you could get comic books anywhere and picked that up. It was like that, or it was some 2099 stuff. And I just started watching the Fantastic Four animated series. But it was 2099 Fantastic Four is a completely different thing. And I didn't know anything that was going on. So I was like, Spider-Man, I understand. I don't understand this. So I'm going to go with the Spider-Man. And that was it. From there, it was a deep dive into X-Men. I mean, super, super deep dive into X-Men. I between X-Men, Spider-Man, and really gargoyles, honestly, that's my foundation of my character. That's who I am. I was taught not to be a racist by X-Men, and it's funny because rewatching, they weren't shy about it. That was the thing that I always take away. That was a show. It's funny because nowadays a lot of people say, oh, they're just browbeating you with a lesson, and I feel like that sometimes, but it's really, really dependent on the writing. But the X-Men show was just in your face with it. It was we're planning a mission, but the TV in the background is a Friends of Humanity rally. And it's they're being assholes. They are the bad guys. They are wrong. And it's holy shit. They really just went all the way with it. And I really honestly think that I treat people like the way I do, like equally, because of X-Men. Like it's funny to me to watch people who claim to be X-Men fans complain about equality. Like,
Yeah.
like you didn't read it. You didn't watch. You weren't paying attention.
And that's something that actually stands out to me in particular, because you'll comment on TikToks where I'll post, this is they race swapped a character, or somebody was not how they were originally in the comics, and then people will be like, oh, like let's say for Namor, for example, why does he have to be brown? Why does he have to be blah blah blah? And I'll see you defending the equality. Like, so that was another thing that always stuck out to me was I think your morals are very solid. And that was the same thing for me too. Superheroes in general are where I got a lot of my morality from, of, hey, this is right, this is wrong.
Right.
It was all of those lessons from the comic books and animated shows. So it's funny that I wonder if those creators, realize the impact that they had on all of these children across the world that were reading these things, consuming these things, and it just kind of absorbed into our DNA. So I'm very similar to you, like with Spider-Man, with X-Men. It's just part of my DNA that this is what's right and what's moral. And actually, X-Men is really interesting, especially that 90s animated show, because you can see both the racial equality part of it, and then also now I think there's even more sexual, like homosexuality and bisexuality. There's a lot of things that they just preach hey, this is what equality, don't treat someone who's different than you differently. Treat them as you want to be treated, almost that golden rule. So I always find it interesting that X-Men, you can adapt it to, as the times go on, it's like, oh yeah, this is a metaphor for this. This is a metaphor for this. So I always found that interesting. And like I said, your responses on TikTok, I can tell that it's something that is important to you, and it sticks out to me as well. So I just wanted to give you kudos on that, give you props on all of your TikTok stuff. And the stuff that you say I think it would be common sense, but especially since I started posting on YouTube, I've been getting comments, and it's like, this is 2022. What is going on? These people are like, dang, now I'm blanking on her name. The one who wanted to play Rogue. She just hosted SNL recently.
Oh my God.
I can see her face, but I'm blanking on the name. But it was like, so many people came out.
That's my feelings. I'm so bad with remembering people's names. Keke Palmer.
Keke Palmer. And so, she wants to play Rogue. Okay, why not? There's nothing about the character of Rogue that says she has to be Caucasian or says she has to be anything. And all these people, well, it wasn't like that when I was growing up, so I can't be like that now. You can't have an African American. And it's like, what is going on? These people have no, like, first of all, that shocks me that they believe that. But then also the no filter to say it. Like, they have no shame in saying it out loud. And it's like, I don't know what is going on. But like I said, the YouTube is what brought that to my attention, actually TikTok as well. So I was like, man, I didn't realize there was that many people still left that were believing this way, but it just kind of boggles my mind.
It's insane. It's insane to watch. Like, and you see, like, TikTok is a perfect microcosm of seeing what every different group of people goes through. And it's one of those, like, I knew women had it tough, but then watching women creators that I follow have to literally just defend their existence of just like, hey, I'm just on here doing my thing. I'm not here to be sexualized. I'm fucking cosplaying. Like, it's insane to me. Like, I get fucking drained watching them have to do it. And then the feeling, I can't even imagine how they actually feel about it, because it's such a and so, like, I put my two cents in where I can, but it's like, at some point, like, I have no business speaking in certain circles. So, like, I always sit down and I look at it and I'm like, I have an opinion. And then I'm like, do I have a dog in this fight? Like, is there something I can bring to this that is beneficial? Or am I just parroting shit? Or am I just, like, diluting the argument? So I walk away a lot more. When I was first on TikTok, I was trying to get into a lot of boxing matches, because there's a lot to fight. I mean, if this was a beautiful and just world, there wouldn't be any fights to have. But unfortunately, that's not the situation that we're in. So there are a lot of fights to be fought. So I have very strong feelings about a lot of things, and you just see people talking out the side of their face, and it's very, very, like, for me, it's frustrating, and I'm just a straight white dude. I cannot imagine. I cannot, like, I have a really good fucking imagination, but like, I still can't like fully comprehend the situation from a different person's perspective like that. So when I put in, like, from my perspective where I can, like, when people freaked out about, what was it, Seeing Red, and everyone's like, oh, this, that, or the other thing, I'm like, well, look, I've never been a girl. I never had to deal with a period and growing up as a girl, but I've got mom issues. I related to that, like, having to live up to your mother's expectations. Like,
Right.
Holy shit, like, that movie touched me in that aspect. Like, I don't know what it's like to have to be a teenager and a girl. That's a whole different fucking universe. But like, I related to the part that I can relate to. And that's the thing that every time somebody's like, oh, they race swapped or whatever, why can't it be like the comics? Like, so is it that much harder for, somebody as a white person to see themselves in a black character? Because black people have been having to do that for 100 fucking years since media started. So like, is it just that much harder? It's just so impossible for you to see like reflections of yourself in a person who doesn't look exactly like you and behaves exactly like, it's so ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because like I said, if it's not something that is built into the character, let's say, like, okay, T'Challa and Black Panther being African, being part of Wakanda is part of that character's essence. Like, it's not going to be the
and
same.
Like, specifically a non-colonized nation, like, completely separate. Like, there is so much core to that. And it's like, people were talking about like a black Superman. Like, that could be interesting. Let's see where it goes. But like, I personally, because I read the comics, like, I like the black Superman that we have. Like, I love Val-Zod. Like, Earth 2 was the best thing that came out of New 52. And I love Val-Zod's story. Like, him growing and like becoming mature and like eventually hooking up with the Power Girl, then becoming Superwoman or whatever. Like, that's a great fucking story. Let's follow that story. And like, seeing a situation where we have a Superman who wasn't like raised the generically morally appropriate way or whatever, but still being a good person. Like, that's the fucking cool part of this story. But it's like, oh, we just want to like have a black Clark Kent story. Okay. I mean, like, that could be interesting, but then it's like, you can't not change the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a black kid growing up in fucking Kansas is going to be a different situation. Like,
right. And that's
like,
what
Miles and Peter are different for a reason.
Right. And that's what everything should be. Is like, it should be in service of the story. What is the best story that we can tell, and how these characters changing and evolving and growing. And it just, like I said, it blows my mind that the first of all, that they have that thought. And then secondly, that they'll say it before it even happens. Like the Keke Palmer thing. It's like, she hasn't been cast. People are like, oh, this is terrible. I'm never watching Marvel again. And it's like, wait a minute. She hasn't been cast yet. This is her saying that she would like to play the character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, did you even listen to my news? Like, my report that I made was that she wants to do it, not that she's been cast. So it was
very much, it was like a fan cast. And then she saw it. She was like, that's a good idea. I'm into that. Right. Which to me, that automatically is a sign that should be the person playing it.
Right.
Because if they're already into that character, the idea of playing that character, let that motherfucker play. Like,
right.
Like, and that's when someone's passionate about something, they're going to bring a better product to the table.
Right. And I didn't see one person saying, I just don't like her as an actress. I don't like her acting.
No, because she's great.
Yeah, everything was the look. Like, she's black. I don't like the way she looks. And it's like, why are you here? Why are you following my channel? I just don't understand. Like, so it just boggles my, like I said, I've said it, take a shot every time I've said it, boggles my mind. But in 2022, I never thought that I would be living in this world, because I grew up biracial. My dad was in the Air Force, so we were in a different country every 2 years. And growing up on the military bases, it was like, oh, okay, I see all races. I see everybody. And I didn't realize that people did not think that, like, oh, everyone is open to everything. So it's just kind of like crazy to me. And now I'm trying to pass that on to my son and be like, hey, this is the proper way that you should do things. But yeah. So hopefully we can just continue our comic book, like, spreading that as we received it, continuing on to the next generation and passing on what we have learned on to the next one. But I also, speaking of X-Men, Spider-Man, things like that, I wanted to get your take because this is another thing on TikTok. Like I said, you're very knowledgeable. That's one of those things that when I follow somebody, I want to follow someone that's either entertaining or educating. Like either I'm getting information or I'm getting entertained. So when I see your stuff, I'm like, oh man, he knows what he's talking about. He knows that. I know that whatever the topic is, you're going to be able to wax poetic on it. So I wanted to ask you, what currently is tickling your fancy in the world of comics? Marvel, DC, Image, what has been like knocking it out of the park for you lately?
A lot. I don't want to say everything in the current Krakoan era of X-Men. At first it was everything because I think there was just a lot more single-mindedness because there was a single mind behind it when Hickman was running it. And it's funny because I didn't realize retroactively, I realized that a lot of the stuff I've liked historically has been Hickman. Ooh, so like, it's been very like the pre-Secret Wars Avengers stuff, the Avengers World stuff, that was Hickman. And I was like, that makes sense. He thinks the way I think. So it's funny because like he did the whole like different strike teams and stuff for Avengers. And I was like, you're welcome, world, because I thought of that shit like 10, 15 years ago. I wrote that shit down in a notebook. I put that onto the universe. He just executed it. And I was like, you guys are welcome. Same thing with the new, what was it? The new Dexter show. Literally when Dexter ended, my cousin and I, we with my tech channel, we do a little film stuff as well. So we're working on some short films. And I was like, what we should do is we should wait like the regular lifetime amount. So like if whatever, the kid was like 5 when the show ended, I was like, we wait like 10 years or whatever. Then he's 15. He discovers his father's the Bay Harbor Butcher and all this stuff. And then they put out a new season. And I was like, you guys are welcome.
Nice. Yeah. Just manifesting it into the world.
So but the new X-Men stuff has been fantastic. I love, I had a thought, like as the weird uncanny run right before the Krakoan era was happening. It like dawned on me like, oh, both Jean and Scott died. Their actual legal marriage is dissolved, like till death do us part. Right. So I was like, wait, can we just I had this thought. I was like, can we just make them like poly with Logan just so I don't have to deal with any more of these, like, you slept with my girl. And then they did. And I was like, thank you. Like, it's just like, I was so sick of it. Like every couple years it'd be like, oh, Logan, Jean's cheating on Cyclops cheating. I was like, can we just be done with it? Can we just be done? That's a stupid story. Yeah. It's been stupid for 30 years. Can we just move on to the next phase of this? And then he comes in and they live in the same house. Jean has doors to either room. And I'm like, yeah, this is appropriate. I like this. This is good. Like, cause then it's just like, it's one less, cause I feel like a lot of those things are crutches in storytelling. You like giving, like before they revealed that he was gay, doing a story where Bobby Drake has a bad relationship with a woman. Lame. It's been done 40 times. They haven't even did a story where like all the exes showed up. Like there's a lot of exes, and I think he has a kid with one of them. They kind of just like glossed over that. It was weird, but it's like when you do that 40 times, oh, he's got one more weird relationship. Like he kisses the doctor and he's trying to hook up with her, and that fails as well. Like it's all been done. Like we've done bad Bobby Drake relationships before. So like I liked when he was dating. Well, like when he was dating a dude regularly, like he had just a regular relationship, and I was like, yes. Right. But just give them, like, move them forward as characters. That's been my biggest thing in comics is the stagnancy, the unfettered desire to go back to the status quo. Yeah. I loved Peter Parker when he had his own company. Yes. He was building shit and growing shit. I'm like, this guy's a scientist. Why wouldn't he be doing something other than taking fucking pictures? Right. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then everyone's like, oh, it's fucking bad. And then it was like, then the horror of fucking Secret Empire, and we have to just tank Peter Parker's life again. Well, let's do it. Let's just tank Peter Parker's life. And all of a sudden it comes out that like, because like you don't have to write the story where people find out that Otto wrote his, doctoral thesis or whatever. Right. But they chose to. So now he's a plagiarist on top. Like, so now Peter Parker's a bad person. Like, that
always bothered me. And we did an episode on the illusion of the third act in mainstream comics, where it's like you're always like you have the the first act, you have the second, and they're constantly in the second act, and they're hinting at, oh, this is going to be his third act or her third act, but it's always just in limbo, and you always have to return them back to the status quo. And I think that's where, indie comics thrive versus mainstream comics of, hey, we can have a beginning, middle, and end. We can have a complete story, or we can have these characters go through actual change. Look at Invincible, look at Walking Dead, actually have them progress versus just staying stagnant. And it's that double-edged sword because, like, I love Peter Parker, I love Bruce Wayne, love all these classic characters, but then I do want to see Miles. I do want to see the new evolution, and then I do want to see those classic guys kind of move on in their lives instead of just staying 30 years old for 30 years, 60 years.
That's been like a thorn in my side for the longest time. That's why one of the best X-Men stories, I think, in the history of X-Men is X-Men The End.
Yes.
It wraps up so much in such a beautiful way. Kitty Pryde becomes president, just everything. The way it just wraps everything up, absolutely love it. And everyone grew up, and people died, and people moved on, people got married. All of these things happen. I'm like, those are the things that should be happening.
Right.
And it's like, this is all because really this is Jim Lee's fault, if you really go back and think about it, because there is this, and it's pretty corroborated from a couple different angles, but he went to Marvel and was like, I really like drawing Wolverine and Magneto. That was his whole thing. That's what he joined. That's what he went into comics for. He wants to draw the characters he grew up with, which makes sense. I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, that means that Claremont couldn't execute his plans, which was to kill Wolverine, kill off Magneto, and move on to new shit.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, well, we're gonna keep them around. And he's like, well, deuces, I'm out. And then Jim Lee leaves a year later or something.
Yeah. And we see it over and over again. And it's like, I love when you have the Parker Industries, when you have that growth that we hadn't seen before in the character, and then that writer leaves, and then it's like, oh no, now they got to reset them back to the status quo again. So yeah, it's always kind of a push and pull, give and take with me, where I'm like, man, I love mainstream comics, but I hate mainstream comics. So yeah, it's always something in the back of my mind.
That's why I dove into the indie space so heavily, because like you said, you can build in a finality. You can build in a storyline that begins and ends. One of my favorite self-contained stories is called Rainbow in the Dark. It's by a pair of creators, a husband and wife creator couple, Comfort and Adam. They do great stuff. They also do a series called The Uniques, which is a little more grunge. I don't say grunge. I'm bad at describing things, but they're kind of like a Teen Titans, but a little more realistic, grown up kind of version of Teen Titans. They're just a little more. There's a lot more sex, a lot more swearing, that kind of stuff. It's it's an indie Teen Titans kind of book. It's young heroes taking over after the old guard has died, and the change of the guard has happened, and that's kind of where the book starts. And that's why I like this kind of stuff, because you can move on and you could do other things. And for me, I had I call it a hot take, but I don't really feel like it should be a hot take. A while back, that I don't know if you saw it. I said, if you want Peter Parker to stay single and stay broke,
I did see that.
You might be racist. Because if you want him to continue being the Amazing Spider-Man, the main Spider-Man, then you are actively preventing Miles from becoming the main dude. And because of that, we get Miles in some I don't want to say bad stories, but weird stories. And it's we gave him his own Clone Saga, and then he was jumping off in various other dimensions. And it's why are we doing all this weird? Why can't he just be in the same universe?
Yeah.
And then it's and then he's back for a Spider-Verse thing. I want him to get his shine. I want him to be he was the main Spider-Man on Ultimate for a while.
Yeah. Yes.
Why can't we just have what I would do, because it's still out there and we still haven't resolved it? Bring the Spider Baby back. That baby's still alive. That baby's out there from 1997 or whatever it was, 96, when the baby died. It didn't die. They literally showed Osborn being all right, take this baby somewhere else. It's on panel. This isn't something that this isn't headcanon. But they just off panel decided that it didn't happen. But it's on panel. It happened. Let's just have him find his baby. And then him and Mary Jane be holy crap, we had a baby. And like, just do the same shit fucking DC did. They just remember that they had a baby.
Yeah, right.
They don't have to have been married. Fine, they weren't married, but they had a baby.
Right.
And that's why they broke up. That was the big breakup, right?
Yeah.
It's not hard to write. Like I'm spitballing here, and it's coming out good. Like,
right.
It's not hard to write, but it's the key is, and I think the best stories are told when we have solid leadership. So like when it was Dan Slott, as much as people don't want to, like, they shit on Dan Slott a lot, which I get. Like, I don't personally understand like the real hate about he turned Franklin and he made Franklin not a mutant,
right?
Which like that happened, sure, but like Franklin wasn't like an X-Men character,
right?
He wasn't like a mainline mutant,
right?
And people are like, oh well, he was part of the 12. I'm like, he wasn't though. Like, he was mentioned as a possible member of the 12 before they even knew what the 12 was going to be. Like, a lot of his like involvement in relation to the X-Men was already retconned. So like, one more thing, like,
right.
Honestly, I didn't feel that bad about it. And I like Franklin. I like the character. I like his whole, like, in the future, he's like ridiculously powerful. And like, he keeps coming back and being like, wake up, fool. Like, his power's back. Like, I love that. That's like a good running gag that they have. But it's like, I like Dan Slott's Spider-Man so much because it was this like build up. So like Joe Kelly, I think, did an okay job after the whole one more day nonsense. But like, Dan Slott came in and just crushed it. It was build up after build. I mean, like, the whole Doc Ock thing was stroke of fucking genius.
I love that.
Like, I'm sending all the bad guys to wear you down so you make a mistake. And I was like, oh, that shit is good. And I think, and it was so good, I think, that if you look at, what was it called? It was Batman Eternal. During the New 52, they stole that.
Oh, yeah, right.
The same fucking plot. I'm sending all the fucking bad guys to wear Batman down. That was the best Batman book by far out of the New 52. Like, Scott Snyder gets his props or whatever, but like, Batman Eternal was so good because it still worked within the greater storyline, everything else that was happening in the Snyder books. But Eternal was just like, for a year, Batman got beat up so that he could fight the one bad guy. Like, it was so good. And every time it was like, oh, you're the one. It was like, no, I got the same invite as everybody else, fool. Like, oh. So it was like and then it was like, oh, the last guy was Calculator. Or not Calculator. I always forget Stephanie Brown's dad.
Oh, shoot. Dang, now I'm blanking.
I always forget his damn name. But anyway, him.
Spoiler.
Yeah, it's him.
Right.
It's him. And it was like, no, it wasn't me. I still got the invite. And I was like, wow. Like, we're still going with this. But it was good. It was entertaining. But that was the thing with, like, once you had the Ock reveal, once he had the whole plan reveal, and you saw all the breadcrumbs, I was like, that's good shit. That's why I like the current X-Men stuff so much, because we had these like little things all over the place. And it was like, the New Mutants went off to Shi'ar space and they had an adventure and they came back with this egg. And then boom, in the X-Men book, we deal with the egg, and then Brood becomes king of the Brood. And now that was like something that we just kind of left dangling out there. And now in Captain Marvel, we're picking that up, and the Brood are coming for revenge. Something's weird because like, something's wrong because he should be in charge. They shouldn't be going crazy like that. So like, it's all like really well being like handled. And I was just reading. I don't know if you saw my most recent Roll to Read thing. I started reading the Squadron Supreme, holy crap, omnibus. And there's early on, it's like an early Avengers issue. And Black Knight loses his ebony blade. It gets teleported away from him. And then he's like, they vanished along with my ebony blade. And then it's like a wide shot panel, and he's got the blade in the hilt. And I was like, you had to not draw the handle. Like, you just had to not draw the handle. Like, it's sitting right there. Like, it's like little continuity stuff like that is the bane of my existence. Like, it just kills me. Like, as long as there's a plan and like really anything, as long as there's a plan and you see where it's going, that's the kind of stuff that I love. Like, I still say the 90s was the greatest decade for media. But the X-Men books were rough in that era. I am fully willing to admit it, because there was no grand plan, and it was just like throw shit at the wall. And I know for a fact certain things were just like, we have no fucking clue. And it was just like last second editorial was like, Joseph's a clone, figure it out.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like they had to resolve that, and like do a 12 story. And like we did like it was okay. Like, it was a fine 12 story, but it was just like, what do? We did another Age of Apocalypse. Sure. Whatever. Like it was like we did something great. And it's funny because I literally just got these. I don't know if you know what these are. These are the Age of Apocalypse classics.
Very nice.
I had a few of them, but I found a lot on eBay, and I was like, snatch.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I like when it's a good plan, and I see certain indie books that are coming out swinging. I found a book like 2 years ago. I started doing like a feature on for Black creators on Saturdays on my Instagram, and I was just like aggressively looking for artists and creators and comic books, and I stumbled upon a book called Delta Dogs, and I think it's Millennium Comics, and I was like, how is this 11 issues deep and I've never heard of it? And it's like, and then I find out they're monthly, an indie comic monthly. I got to see what's going on. I'll pick up the first book on Comixology. Solid. Let me get the next couple. By the end of issue 3, I'm like, all right, well, I got to get the whole run. It's because like you see the plan is there. You see that there is a direction. You see where you see that this is not just like we're just throwing some ideas out there. Like they're going at it strong, and that's what I like. I like a good showing because it's like as much as I miss the like occasional single issue, just like good single story. Having someone in charge to be able to just do the big map, you know, they're seeing the whole universe map while you're just looking at the single issue. It's important. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's some great stuff. And I've got some notes here. I'm taking Rainbow in the Dark and Delta Dogs. I'm going to pick these up after we finish recording here. But I also, you know, I was just watching a recent podcast that you did, and you were saying that Transformers and Beast Wars were two of the things that were kind of influential on you. And I wanted to ask you real quick, what did you think about that new trailer that had the Optimus Primal?
Here's the thing. I love Beast Wars. I love Beast Wars more than is probably healthy. I went to Venture and begged my mom for like I think it was supposed to be an Optimus, but he was like a bat. It was like a completely different character. It had nothing to do with the show. It was just, you know, it was the era of just like make as many toys about the thing as much as possible.
Right.
So like I got one of those and I fell in love with that. And it was like the era of 3D, right? I was watching Reboot. I was watching Beast Wars. Mm. There was a show called, I think it was called Shadow Raiders. It was like different like themed planets. Basically, there was an ice planet, there was a rock planet, and they were all trying to fight for survival. And there was a planet that eats planets that was coming around and eating the planets. That's the whole premise. There was a toy line and everything. I think it ran for 2 seasons. I'm still trying to find it on DVD. But like that was the era. So like watching that and watching the artwork get better and better throughout the seasons. And then when they went into Beast Machines, which was an even like greater achievement, but it's like they kept abandoning, like in the original Transformers cartoon, like you kind of saw where the Optimus arm became the lights and all that stuff. Beast Wars didn't care about that shit. They were just like, this is a monkey. We're animating a monkey. There's no machine parts under this monkey. And now he's not a monkey. And I loved that. So when they went into Beast Machines, they were just like, let's just dive into that. Now we're not even transforming. They are transformed. They're not even transforming. They're not doing the act of transforming. It was like an involuntary thing with like the greater universe or whatever. Like it was great, but it was just like, it was a great series. And the appeal of it was the look. The whole premise was that they had these forms to protect themselves from the rampant energon. So when I saw the drawings for the movie, I was like, I don't know. And then when I saw the trailer, I was like he's a big monkey, but like he couldn't pass as a real monkey.
Right.
And that's the problem. It's like Optimus is a truck. Until he transforms, that's a truck.
Yeah. Right.
No questions about that.
Yeah.
That's not a monkey. like there's no way that's a monkey.
Yeah.
Like that is a robot approximation of a monkey, which I get, but like And then the other like super petty, like deep hardcore fan of me, when he did the transformation, his legs didn't spin around, which like that was one of the greatest bits of the show, because he would land and his legs would spin around.
Yeah,
I was like, that's the coolest shit. And it's like he just like rolled and transformed, and I was like, I mean, that's cool. But I think they're just like, I think they're doing the same thing that Beast Machines did. They're just like, they're diving into the like, we have CG, like it doesn't fucking matter how they get there. He's a monkey, now he's a robot, and he's got guns. Let's just go. Like, they're just doing that. Like, I just don't think they're not, like, if you remember the first transformation of Optimus Prime, they spent like a minute and a half on that thing.
Right.
It was like, here's where the fucking oil filter goes, and like all the pieces, like this truck transformed into a robot, and that shit was awesome. But then as we move forward and they realize, like, this isn't about the details and this isn't about the plot, it just became like, he just transformed now. Like, it's like, you can't, there's no in between animation of Grimlock transforming.
Right.
Like, he's a giant dinosaur and then he's a robot. There's no like, here's where all the arms and here's where the mouth go. No, none of that's happening. Like, you know, we had that for the first one, and that was to grab the attention. And I think it was good. I think the first movie was good. The plot is, I'm honestly, I want no humans. I want all robots. Like, I'm just like, who cares? You know, like, they should leave the planet and go do robot shit out in the universe. Because like, even when I'm watching the shows, it's like, oh, this is cool. This is a cool like interaction between robots. And then it's like, oh, like 3 kids just walked up and they're supposed to matter. Like, they are the size of a pinky on one of these dudes, but they're somehow supposed to matter.
Yeah, I never understood that. Even as a kid, I was like, I don't care about these people. And when the movie came out, I was like, Witwicky, and I didn't understand that there would be a human storyline at all. I was like, I just want giant robots fighting. So,
that's what I'm saying, and that's why people were trying to like, like it doesn't make sense for them to be able to move that fast. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not here for accurate physics representation. What are you talking about? Like, giant robots fighting giant robots. Like, I went to see, was it Kong versus Godzilla?
Yes.
Not for deep plot. I wanted to see a big monkey fight a big lizard.
Yes.
And then they both fight a big lizard robot. That's all I needed out of that movie. They succeeded excellently. Like, there's like certain movies, like Fast and Furious, the more ridiculous stuff. Like, everyone's like, oh, there was a rumor recently. They were like, oh, they should go like back to their roots and like more street race stuff. And I was like, you can't do that.
Right.
Because it'd be boring as shit.
Right.
Because we have literally dropped literally, not CG. They took cars, put it in a C-130 Hercules, and shot the bitches into the ground.
Yeah. Right.
You can't undo that.
Yeah.
We can't have all of a sudden not done that.
Right.
Like, Idris Elba is a cyborg.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that universe. Like, we can't go back.
It's crazy because it's like, when you look back on where they started and where they end up, it's like, these guys are superheroes. They're international spies, and like, what is going on? Espionage, all this stuff. But I love it. I love the transformation that they've gone through and the evolution. And like you said, you can't go back. There's no way. The next one has to be in space. They have to all transform into aliens or something.
Dude, I planned it out. I think it's a brilliant arc. Hear me out. You follow the Power Rangers, the sequence.
Yes.
You go in space, something galactic. You go galaxy. You go super wide, and then you go light speed. Light speed causes some sort of, crazy event or whatever. They get shunted into another universe. First movie, they're in the Jurassic Park universe because it's under the same studio. They're in this. Then they use cars to fucking solve the dinosaur overpopulation problem. And what you see, and this is the key, this is the moment of the movie that like solves everything. You see Chris Pratt riding a Raptor, jump onto a Ford Raptor, and somehow use that to take out an F-22 Raptor in the sky.
I'm sold on this one.
And then after that, they get shunted into the Transformers universe. And they stay there that's forever. The Fast and Furious people are in that universe now. And then we have 2 simultaneous lines of movies. One where just robot shit happens. One where the human like rebellion is, and you see some robots sometimes.
I can get down with that. It's funny when you said Chris Pratt for a second, I thought you were going to say, and then Mario showed up. I was like, what?
Look, I like Mario. I like the concept of that movie. I hated his voice. And it's like, he's doing the accent.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 million Italian Americans in New York right now that could just do that. That's just how they sound. They don't have to put on anything. They could just give them some lines to read. They don't have to be actors.
Yeah.
Like, this could be, you could literally have gotten an Italian American plumber from New York to do this job.
Yeah.
Like,
and Chris Pratt doesn't have one of those, like, he's not like James Earl Jones. It's not like his voice is like, has a presence. It's like, he just sounds like a regular guy. So that's the thing. Some strange casting on that one, but I will still be seeing it because I think that the animation looks fantastic in those trailers.
It looks great. It looks super great. I love the interactions, like the little penguin people. Like, that shit was hilarious. That was hilarious.
Yeah, all of that stuff looks good. So definitely looking forward to that one. Before we end this episode, I did want to get our listeners to hear some more about Catalyst Magazine. Why don't you tell us exactly what is going on over at your website?
Absolutely. I'm hoping to put out this quarter's issue this week, before the end of the year, before the end of the quarter, you know.
Ooh.
Try to put that one out. But basically it was a way to force myself to write. I'm also a writer. I've also got notebooks and sketchbooks full of plans. But it was a way to give myself a deadline, basically. This started as like a super macro version, like originally like a 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was like, I want to create the Steam of indie, right? Where you could get indie comics and indie music and indie games. Like, all of it can be in this one application for your computer, just like Steam, but indie. And we'll take the bare minimum. Like, we take an operating cut. That's it. No fucking 30%. Like, if we need, $2,000 a month or whatever the fuck to run the servers, that's the only amount we will take. Like, that's it. I'm not like, it's not a profit machine. It was always the idea was to just like make a place where everyone can go. Cause like, that's the thing. When I was finding all those, people a couple years ago, I was like, how have I not fucking heard about these people? Like, there are people on their 4th, 5th, 11th fucking issue. I'm like, how have I never heard of this shit?
Yeah.
And it's like, if I had a place to go, and it's like, there are places where it's getting there. And there are certain publishers, indie publishers, that are like bringing a lot of talent into the same place. But even then, it's all still going to Kickstarter. It's all still like, there's still like a middleman or 2 or 3 sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
So I really wanted this like one place. And I started with the biggest version. That's kind of how I am. I started with the biggest version of the idea. And then over the years, I was like, we launched a website. I've got the banner over here. It used to be called Write My Epic. And it was meant to be like a collaborative writing and creating space, and started some like ideas there, like round robin writing, where it's just, you write a chapter and somebody else comes in and writes the next chapter. A little bit like a creative social platform. And I think something like that could still happen maybe one day, but even that, like, it really wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, what can I do to like bring these ideas out for me, like where I can put my shit down and then also share all these dope people? Because it's like, I only have a limited following on, at the time, just Instagram, because I don't think it was even on TikTok yet. I have a limited following on Instagram. Like, I'm not like several thousand deep where I could just be like, yo, check this person out, and I can send them, sales. But like, if I create, I'm like a mailing list. Everyone talks about mailing list. And I'm like, okay, but what is it? And then it just like formed out of that, and it became this magazine. And I really wanted like the best of Wizard magazine from back in the day, because that's my shit. Like, I literally that bottom 2 shelves over here is a Wizard fan, and what's the other one? Whatever. Like the 3 magazines that were out that time. Like, I'm looking to collect all of them because I like reading the old articles. It's really interesting to read like interviews with people from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Some of it's really weirdly prophetic. It's kind of hilarious. But it's like, I wanted to take the best of that and like the idea of heavy metal, where it's like, you literally can read the comic. So like, when you have it in your hand, when you're reading it, when you have it in front of you, you could read the actual comic, the actual work. So I'm like, but like, people don't have time to make new shit. And I was like, well, what if we share the first issue or the first chapter, or first few pages if it's something that's about to come out, just to whet the appetite, right? Just to get people interested. So that's what I do. I share people's first chapter of their book or first issue or first few pages, and it's a live PDF that goes directly to your inbox, and it's completely free for everybody. No one's charged for being in it. No one's charged for getting it. There's no advertising. We may at one point look at, I say we, it's me. It's all me. It's all my work. So that's why it takes so long for me to put it out. But I'm looking into having some guest collabs and stuff like that. And it's something where it goes out. It's a live PDF, like I said. So if you read something and you like it, right after that page, you're going to have links to their social, links to their website, or if it's on Amazon, like you can go directly and buy it on Amazon, nice. Or on their website or whatever. So like my I'm not trying to, I don't know. I'm not trying to because there's a big fear in the indie community, like that people would just share the PDFs, right? If you give out the PDFs, people would just share it and you'll never get any sales. Right. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to send people to buy your shit. So I'm sorry, I didn't even ask at the top of this. Like, I've been cursing the whole time. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's
you have a lot of editing to do. Yeah. That's just how I talk. But I wasn't trying to, undercut anybody. I really just like sharing stuff. And the greatest thing about it has honestly been that it's been growing organically. I spent $0 on any kind of advertising. I mention it here and there when I drop an issue. And that's about it. Like, I really very rarely do any kind of promotion, and we're over 100 subscribers already. It might be even more. Nice. That was a couple months ago I looked. And if anyone listening or watching knows anything about mailing lists, we have a 25% open rate, which is like unheard of in the mailing list space. So yeah. I think that's pretty cool. And I track the links, because I want to see if this is helpful. Like, I want to see, and people get clicks. So people nice. People are going to some of these links and seeing what's going on. And that, to me, honestly makes it worth it. I also, like I said, I use it as a way to give myself a deadline. So I have put out the first novella basically through that. The first 5 issues, I dropped my 5 chapters, and now I'm just finishing that up and hopefully going to be publishing early next year. And it's a way for me to get ideas out. And I'll be honest with you, when I finished that 5th chapter, I was like, it's done. Like, there's all this room in here now. I've got all these other things that can happen. And then I went to editing, and that just really took over my life, because editing is a bitch.
That's fantastic. So everyone can find that at thecatalyst.digital, and across social media, Instagram, TikTok. Like I said, I have been a fan of yours, and I will continue to be a fan. So please continue all of the great work that you're doing across socials and being the indie hype man with Catalyst. That is fantastic. I very much applaud you, sir.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm very glad that you're able to join us today. And I want to let everybody out there know that Dalibor loves comics, and you should too.